This is Meet the Owner, where business stories come to life with your host, Steven Dryden-Hall. Let's go, people.
Welcome to Boom 7, Meet the Owner. I'm very excited today. I've got a big foodie on the show today. It's Andrei from Lussman's, just opened in Woburn, actually. I was going to say Woburn Sands, but Woburn is posher. And there's a lot of fine dining to be had. So, Andrei, welcome to the show. First question really is, did you find us okay? And do you know much about Milton Keynes?
Well, thank you and good morning. I don't know enough about Milton Keynes. I'll just be honest, no. Apart from where we are, there's no roof and it's very cold. But thankfully in this little pod, it's very warm.
Correct.
So I need to know more about Milton Keynes. I know there's a Andrei Blanc here. I know the restaurant scene in part, and I know it takes about 20 minutes to drive around the outskirts of Milton Keynes on the way to Oxford. But that's it. But I don't live that far away, actually. I only live about 20 minutes away. So
Bedford?
Yeah, just outside Bedford.
So I used to work for Charles Wells.
Very
obviously,
good.
Lots of pubs. I think in the estate there's 200 pubs, so
yeah.
There's lots of them that are actually in Bedford. So that's quite nice to know. Just tell us a little bit about your restaurant to start with, and then I want to just hear about your story throughout your life, really.
Well, Lussman's in Woburn is our seventh restaurant, and it's part of a group, and we are fiercely independent. And we've only just opened in Woburn, albeit there's a slight history with Woburn. Not that it's the posher part of Woburn Sands. To be honest with you, I never really thought of that.
It is, though, by the way.
It is a lovely Georgian house on the corner in a great setting. And when it came up for sale, to be leased by the Duke's brother, we competed with Lock Fine. And clearly we came out as the poorer business because we didn't get it. They just said, "Can you just move on, please?"
Do you remember what year that was? Because
that was a few years ago. I mean, maybe 15 years ago, might be a little bit longer. It was some time ago. But because I lived in the area, I lived in a very funny named village called Moggahanger, which is...
Oh, I know the Guinea in Moggahanger.
Yes, that's right. That's also yes, that's correct. Charles Wells pub. And I used to live pretty much opposite the Guinea. So it was very good to have a local that you could go and do some work at.
Of course.
That I don't live there anymore, unfortunately, because that road was very busy. But anyway, the Woburn Lock Fine, which it became, I felt that we'd let that go and we should never... given the chance, if it should come up again, we should take it. So I did make sure that, every 3 to 6 months we would write to the Duke and the Savills and everyone involved and said, look, for God's sake, when this comes up, should it ever come up, we're the best people to run it because we'll do a really good job for you.
So persistence, that's part of your DNA probably then. So
yes, it's resilience, resolve and persistence, because I think in hospitality, as we've seen since 2010, and those heady days of austerity and everything that's gone along since then, we have all been experiencing constant knockdowns. That period of Blair and Brown where there was boom on the backside of Major, the things have moved on and things are very flat and very difficult, problematic, and people are fed up listening to hospitality being an issue, but actually it is really tough, and it hasn't stopped being tough since 2010. And even though we opened in 2002, good 22 years ago. Woburn, because I lived in the area, I knew that our business model, I hate to use a model because model suggests everyone's identical, but in essence, the model would work. And we opened on potentially the worst month of the year, which is December the 1st.
I know, I've been waiting for you. I've been speaking to your PR company. I'm like, when are you opening? When are you opening? When are you going to catch Christmas?
That's right. So we opened in December, and it was a tough month because you generally don't want to open in December because invariably you get a lot of business, but you are vulnerable because you're probably not on point. People are still learning. It's like moving house, and you get your parents-in-law coming to see you on the first weekend. Like, no, go away. Just give us a few weeks of takeaways and finding our way without anyone arriving.
Correct.
Anyway, the building's built, designed, sorted, and it's very easy to make a beautiful restaurant if you're starting off with a building as beautiful as that house. It's a Georgian house with so much character. I mean, the back of it's Victorian, but so it meant that we didn't have to do very much. And in fact, with Lussman's, it's always been about let's keep it simple and as fast as possible. So if you think of changing rooms, that's what we do.
Yes.
We go in, we don't do anything which is structural, so therefore that reduces the cost
Cheaper, I was
involvement.
going to say cheaper.
It's a lot cheaper,
Yes.
a lot faster, a lot less problems for either landlords or building control or planning, etc., to get involved with, because it doesn't really happen.
So lesson one, if you've got a business anyway, get the right deal and the right structure to start with.
I think it's about doing it simply and keeping it value driven and keeping your powder dry in terms of let's not spend too much. There's so much we've done where we've saved so much money, and people have walked in and said, this place looks great. And actually, all we've done is we've changed the chairs around. We've got some paint up. We put a new knocker on the door, new toilet seats. Maybe we've thought about, well, actually, let's change a bit of the lighting, which you can do. You don't need to redesign the wheel.
No.
So people have come into Woburn, and there's no comparison to Loch Fyne, which is not. Loch Fyne was great, but we're not Loch Fyne. And we did it 3 or 4 months ago with the Coat restaurant in Highgate, which was a Coat for 15, 16 years.
Yes.
And we made sure that as you came in, it didn't feel like a Coat. And we only had 2 weeks when we were in Highgate.
Sometimes it's better, isn't it? Because you don't have time to change your mind. You're like, let's do this, let's stick to it.
Yeah.
You mentioned, Andrei, value for money. So I was on your Instagram, I think it was 3 a.m. this morning. I woke up very weirdly, and I went onto your Instagram page, which was your old page, which you clearly ran, and then there's a changeover to a more professional Instagram. But talking about value, I'm not sure the year, I think 2016, you had 3 courses for $12.95.
Yes.
Wow. Do you remember them days?
Yeah, we were too cheap.
You were too cheap. I was like, I'm going here. Oh no, it's a bit outdated now.
It is out of date. Well, we all now know that when we go out to eat, it's going back, roll back the years to the 70s, in that we can hardly afford to take our families out to eat anymore. I mean, even if it's a chain restaurant, it's expensive.
Yes.
And therefore, I hope, if nothing else, it'll do, it means either we'll end up cooking it from home and looking after our families and doing what we should be doing. And if we do go out, we search out better places.
Of course.
Because I still think there is a plethora of restaurant tables and chairs that lie empty up and down the country, usually big brands, that we don't really need anymore.
No, I agree with you. And Milton Keynes got a bit of a reputation in the past, probably 4 or 5 years ago, that it's all chains, it's all brands, it's all this. Well, actually, what's happening now is the likes of sort of the Ski Dome and these big buildings, they're letting independents in because they realise that the big boys they want their best restaurants to stay open in terms of the profit, and they'll shut the ones that aren't because they're just keeping them up. But it's interesting for Milton Keynes. I think we're coming in terms of a lot more independence. I want to go back to when you was at school. So what were you like at school? Did you like food, and was this what you were always going to do?
Well, I liked food because I went to a school that meant that I had to stay there all the time. So basically it was a boarding school from the age of 6. So I liked food, but there was never any food. Because, it was like Lord of the Flies. You just had to fight for yourself.
Wow.
It did conjure up the opportunity. It did create the opportunity where I started to do deals. For
food?
I did lots of deals with food. And it was a great business. I mean, I remember things like I would go out and buy loads of food, bring it back, sell it on. This was not allowed, and as a result of it, I'd be like, "You're banned. You can't watch the evening film." And I'd be in the shower drinking Top Deck, thinking that I was, Michael Winner, or I was some entrepreneur, because I didn't really care about the film. The fact is, I had a bag of money. It was in a plastic bag, next to my hand, which was in the shower with my can of Top Deck. I mean, it was very, very sad, but it did mean that where there is a closed collection of people in a very in a place like a school, and they've got nothing to do, they want to eat.
So you had an audience.
Yeah, I had an audience. And, it might have been, we'd buy white bread and put dolmio on that awful plastic parmesan that we used to call parmesan back in the 80s and 90s. And I'd sell that for £1 a piece, and I'd make a fortune.
Wow.
So there was always opportunities of making some money using food, because that's what most kids want.
Supply and demand.
Yes, either that or magazines of naked women. But I won't go into that.
Not at 6 though.
No, not at 6. Not at 6.
Not at 6. You
no, that was later. But the point is that gives you the chance to realise, and today I suppose I've just carried on selling food. It's essentially, we're a trader. You're putting other people's products and goods on a table, and you just got to make sure that it's consistent.
So you left school to go to university?
Yeah, I went to university begrudgingly because I didn't do very well at school, and my father was of that generation. If you didn't go to university, you were a failure. So I went to university.
What did you study?
Well, it was actually Birmingham Polytechnic,
Okay.
so it wasn't a university. It switched in my time to a university, but I'm very proud of the fact it was Birmingham and it was a poly, because polytechnics are great. I don't agree with everyone going to university. I think many great brains can be spared of all of that and be put to work. And they can do some better things. Make money, be enterprising, entrepreneurial, create opportunity, and let the very brilliant Bletchley minds of yesterday go to university, and let's make sure they get the money and the opportunity to grow, and let the rest of us, and I think most of us, should just work. And from that, I think we'd have a better economy.
So what did you study?
Well, I studied business and hospitality, or business and hotel management.
Did you finish?
Yeah, I got my degree and all the rest of it, but I knew at college, because it was a very practical course to a certain extent, I knew at college that I'd worked full-time for a number of years, from 15, 16 onwards, holidays and bits and pieces. I knew that in hospitality, the secret was to work in the industry and know the business.
Yes.
Because I remember working in hotels in Devon where graduates would come through and no one would have any respect for them. And though they had the pips on their shoulder and they were all the rest of it, they didn't understand the industry. They didn't understand hospitality. They didn't understand the hard work. They didn't understand the key KP or the night manager. He's been there for 18 years or 28 years and knows a lot about the business. So I decided to work full-time. And when I was in Birmingham, I had 3 jobs.
Amazing.
Worked for Duran's nightclub in Digbeth.
Excellent.
For a very short period of time. I worked in Ronnie Scott's before I was sacked. I worked in 2 or 3 hotels. And then I ended up at TGI Fridays, because TGI's, in those days, early 90s, was big.
Do you know Steve Wilkins? He was part of the team that brought it from the States. I was a low standing, I just did the hard, heavy lifting. Of course.
And I was a waiter and bar back and worked the bar and in the kitchen and did all those bits and pieces. But TGI today has lost its way.
But
it was an awesome company at
Amazing.
its time.
Yes.
And I was very fortunate that I had the chance to work with a great company at its zenith. It was at the zeitgeist of what was going on in the industry. Like Pizza Express later.
Yes.
Pizza Express at its height of success, 95 to 2000. Share price from 90p to £9 a share.
Amazing.
Growth from 60 restaurants to 250 in that small space of time. I worked with them, and they were very much market leaders. So
what level were you then?
Well, I worked there as a manager, and then I became operations manager of the Channel Islands. So I went out there and looked after their projects out there. So it was just great to work for a business that you learn so much from. And actually, there were so many competent pioneers that have gone on to do other things in the industry. So it was a good time to be there.
In terms of being in the industry, because I've been in the industry as well, and it's long hours, hard graft. You've got to listen to the customer. You've almost got to agree with them. It can be annoying. You're tired. You're on your feet. Would you say most of your friends are from the industry, or have you met a lot of people along the way where they've been your customer?
Well, there's a couple of things. I've made a note of not allowing myself to become friends with my customers. It sounds really weird, because I've always felt
he doesn't like you
it
guys.
Crosses a line. No, you've got to be professional. But I've never had dinner, I don't think, with a customer.
With a customer?
No, because I've always felt as though there's a line.
Yes.
And I don't want to, go with that line.
Yeah.
Because I think I always felt that if I was sort of, if I came across in the restaurant like the Aga Khan, walking in, buying bottles of champagne with loads of women behind me, acting like the bollocks, that was basically, it doesn't happen like that.
Okay.
It's never been like that. And secondly, if I acted like that, would think he's an absolute fool.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And thirdly, when I wasn't there, the staff would be drinking the champagne. So I always felt as though, and fourthly, I didn't find any women who wanted to follow me anywhere to the restaurant, which is probably the reason.
It's the truth. Let's go to the truth.
So really, I thought, professionalism was, I think, very important, and we've kept that. In terms of friends, I'd say I've worked with a lot of people.
You have.
I'd say a lot of my friends, funny enough, work in the business, and they've become my friends.
Yes.
I have a very small nucleus of friends. I mean, if you can count good friends on one hand, I think you're doing well.
Yeah, of course.
I think the younger generations have huge numbers of friends.
Yes.
Clearly, I'm not successful in that respect, because I have none in that number. So I work with quite a few people I get on very well with, and I'm very personally, I'm personal with them outside work. Doesn't mean they're not given a hard time, but I care for them.
Yeah.
And actually, our ops manager today is actually a friend of mine, James, and he was my boss back in the mid-90s.
He's your boss.
But we both have we both have an intrinsic understanding of hospitality, how things should be done. It's like, two brothers from a different mother sort of thing.
Yes.
And therefore he was the ideal candidate when the opportunity came up to come on board and help us grow. So yes, it is stressful having friends who you work with, but I think it's about clear accountability,
yes,
professionalism, and knowing where to draw a line. And it's not always easy.
So let's talk about, and I'll quote, Uncle Ray. So I'm saying, I'm saying Uncle Ray. So just to let you know, I've got an Uncle Raymond,
right?
And my nan is called Rachel Ray, right? So nothing to do with anyone. Yeah. But I noticed there's a little pattern on your socials. I thought I'd mention Uncle Ray. So who's Uncle Ray to you?
Well, Uncle Ray is Raymond Blanc, obviously.
Okay, so that's a good friend.
And clearly, he's not my uncle. No. Although he's the right age, really.
Yeah, love that.
And there's nothing else going on there. So he obviously, he was for many years the face behind Brasserie Blanc.
Correct.
And obviously, you have Brasserie Blanc in Milton Keynes. Long story short, I got to know him through various awards we've been awarded, and he's given them to us. We were founding members of the Sustainable Restaurant Association. He's the presidente of, and we've done dinners with him. And I suppose we were probably his favourite restaurant that he wasn't allowed to talk about, because clearly we compete with Brasserie Blanc, and all his, all those he supports are, people that have been mentored by him. So we were sort of outside that district. Of course. And he came to St Albans to open his restaurant, and very funnily, he forgot to. He said, "I'm going to invite you," and he's a busy man. So anyway, he forgot to invite me. Not a problem. So on the day of the Brasserie Blanc opening, after Milton Keynes opened, I got a call. I call from one of the staff saying, Raymond's on the phone. I'm like, I don't know anyone Raymond.
Raymond. Who calls him Raymond?
And he's like, well, no, he won't go away. So I went there, and he said, "Oh, this is Raymond Blanc. Sorry, Andrei, I forgot to invite you. Can you forgive me and be there tonight at 6:00?"
Is he Portuguese?
Where is he from now? My accent is poor. Anyway, I felt honoured, but I was wearing a boiler suit, and because I was dealing with pipes which had come away, and
Amazing.
The job of a restaurateur is not about walking around talking to customers and drinking coffee all the time. I said 98% of the time it's making sure things are fixed,
correct,
and not broken. So I said, look, I will come along. Anyway, I went along, funny enough, and it was 2-minute story. It was about 8:00. I thought let him have his thunder. It'd be inappropriate for me to walk in.
Just let him have it.
So I walked in, and the door slammed, and it was a full house, and everyone looked round. And at that point, he obviously told everybody who I was, which I found slightly embarrassing, because it looked as though I was trying to steal customers.
Yeah.
Anyway, as a result of that, 3 sets of people came up to me at the end, and I was standing there, in my greasy overalls. I looked like...
Oh, you were still dressed?
Yeah, I had nothing else to wear. I'm not going home. It's
fancy
fine.
dress.
Yeah, so I was there looking like a smelly, Herbert. So I said, these customers say, well, are you Andrei? I said, yes. I said, can we book a table? And I said, I don't work here. I said, this is not, sorry, you got me mixed up. I said, I work around the corner. Yes, I know, but, Raymond's really said that you're a great bloke and it's a great restaurant, so we'd like to come and eat there. And I'm like, This is very odd. I said, this is not my restaurant, and I shouldn't be taking... Anyway, things are tough. So I said, all right then, go on then. So I asked this chap to my side, can I borrow your piece of paper? Anyway, on the 3rd table, he turned around and said, what do you think you're doing? And I said, what's it to do with you? And he said, well, I'm the operations director of Brasserie Blanc, and you're touting all our customers. And of course, at that moment, I suddenly realised, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
So at the end of the evening, it was a very, very,
surreal
moment. So at the end of the evening, Raymond said, I'm going to take you out for dinner. And obviously he had his entourage there, and I was surprised he was talking to me, but I said, okay. And he took me to Lussman's, which was slightly nerve-wracking. So as I arrived, I pulled the door. So nervous was I. I pulled the door, the handle came out in my hand, and I stood there. I'm not joking. I stood there. He walked straight in. 80% of the customers recognised him, and the other lot thought, who's that funny bloke standing there with a pole in his hand? And at that point, he walked around every table, probably doing exactly what I was doing an hour earlier, probably taking bookings. And everyone loved it because he was in there. And then we sat down and had dinner. And then obviously, he had a very nice evening. But it was a funny turn of events on that evening. But yeah, we have a generous and decent relationship, which I'm sure will grow. And we have a book coming out this year.
Oh, little plug.
And yes, book? And it's a cookbook. I mean, everyone does cookbooks, I appreciate, but this might be nice cookbook for those who are interested in Lussmann's. It probably won't make the.
Will he
bestseller.
feature?
Well, yes, I think he's right in the front of it.
I'd like to buy one, and I'd like you to sign it. So
yes, you're very kind. Anyway, it'll take a little while. So, but it'll come out this year, which has now given me a deadline to make sure it will come out this year.
Fantastic. You mentioned awards. I mean, you've won a lot of awards, and I think if it's a quiz question, I'd be like, Andrei, right? How many awards have you won? Is it 10, 40, or 35? I don't know, but there's a lot of awards going through your PR channel, social media. Do you even know how many you've won?
Well, I know that we won 8 national awards,
Amazing.
But in all fairness, I was always of the understanding the awards don't matter, and everyone says that. But unless you're a professional tennis player, when obviously winning a tournament does matter.
Which tennis player are you going to mention? Because are you Swiss?
Yes.
So have you got your favourite?
Yeah, of course I have.
Yeah, because on your channels as well, I feel like a stalker. I'm not like this, Chris, am I? You always mention National Switzerland Day, and it ran. I think it's the same flag. That
it is. Yeah, they haven't changed their flag.
He's clearly, it's the same one. He's clearly from Switzerland. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I never talk about personal stuff, generally speaking, on social media, and I'm not good at it, and that's why. But I've always been very, I've never done anything personal. I've always felt, let's be honest, most people have a rather boring personal life. I'm sure even the likes of. I don't know, Kate Winslet has, I'm sure everybody, has.
She's on a boat,
stuff.
right?
Is she? I don't know, I've no idea.
A drowning boat.
so Roger Federer, but I mean,
I knew the answer.
Yeah, Federer, but
legend.
We all love John McEnroe and other bits and pieces. But Switzerland doesn't do much in terms of well-known international sporting stars.
Did you grow up there?
No, I grew up in Nigeria.
Oh, well, okay.
In West Africa,
yes.
and the community we live with were Italian.
Okay.
And of course, that's why hospitality has been I've been searching clearly for my where do I belong?
Where do you belong? So you've answered the question: 8 national awards. How many awards?
I don't know.
Roughly,
I don't know. We won an award, and it gets to a point whereby it sounds very boring that we are going for an award, or it sounds very boring that we're talking about winning an award, and it sounds as though it's only about the awards. And in fact, in the end, you come back to the idea, which is your like for likes from a commercial perspective are the most important. Are we growing the business? Are we still in vogue? Do people still appreciate what we're about? And is the business still thirsty for change? Because we have evolved and we continue to modify, moderate, update what we do slightly all the time. And it's been like most things. If you're a Volvo driver and you buy a Volvo each season, you probably don't notice. You notice a little tweak.
Slight difference.
Yeah, but then if you stand back and say, right, I've had 7 Volvos in my life through 7 seasons, you turn around and say, oh my God, it's changed. And I'd say the same with us. We have changed so much, not in terms of the ethics, but in terms of our styling, our approach, the way in which we serve, because the market is changing. The customers are changing. Our demographic is changing. Their demands are changing. I mean, I came from a time in the 1970s and 80s where you didn't go out. If you did go out, our generation would go to a pub. If you did go to a pub, you'd be in the back of a car in the car park with a packet of crisps from Smith's with a little blue sachet putting salt on top, and everyone was a winner. And that was it.
Still great crisps.
And no one ever considered you going to a pub or anywhere. And if you did go to a pub, it was probably a hotel pub with piled carpet up to your knees, flock wallpaper, and it was very quiet. And no one would say a word because everyone was terribly awkward about the whole thing. And of course, things have changed radically today. That we've become a nation of, people that love to eat out. And that's not only eating out in nice restaurants, eating out everywhere.
Anywhere. I mean, look behind us. Look how much food joints there are here. And, Wingstop's making massive moves around the world, getting backed by a lot of people. Obviously, what I want to know is, when did you go in the kitchen? Do you do the cooking or do you get the chef?
Lussmann was started in 2002, and my sister came on board. And my advice to anybody is not to work with their family.
I second that.
Yeah,
yep.
Because it is. I mean, and my sister is. She now lives in Barcelona, so that we obviously we make sure there's enough space between us.
Kicked her across
she is a fantastic cook. I mean,
yes.
and actually, I think in the end, had she had the opportunity, her vocation would have been a very, very good chef. No doubt about it. She's far better than I am. However, she started with me, and we had a fight over a box of tomatoes and a big knife, and about 2 months later, it was all over. And I realised that though I'd worked in kitchens, I was always front of house.
Yeah.
I didn't want some snotty chef coming to work and then deciding the next day not to come to work because I wasn't paying him enough. I thought, sod that. I can't have this stress and the pressure. I thought, I'll be the cook. With all that sort of flamboyance and ego. The fact is I couldn't cook, or I could only cook 2 dishes, and it was a little bit embarrassing. But I did it for quite a while. I did it for a number of years.
How many years?
I opened up Hartford Lussman's in 2004 as the head chef. And I realised when a customer turned around to the manager on duty and said that bloke, not knowing who I was, that bloke in the kitchen, he's an egotistic brat. And he didn't use those words.
He didn't use brat.
And he's ruined my, the food was lovely. I love it here. But that character, he is a nightmare. And it was like I was a Michelin star chef of paninis. And I suddenly realised, you know what? He's got a point here. You've got to find, in business, you have to find the right person for the right job.
Wow,
at the right time. It sounds simple, but my God, when you're opening a business and running a business, you invariably do everything. You become the jack of all trades. And I suddenly realised I was the biggest reason why we weren't succeeding in that respect. And I had to say, you know what? I've got to leave the kitchen and find somebody. So I found a group head chef who took over from me.
What's his name?
Nick McGowan.
Is he bald?
He is. He actually, funny enough, after 16 years, he's leaving to go to Scotland. Yes, to run a deli and retire.
How dare he? Because again, I'm looking at your socials, stalking you down, and he's all over it. And there's him and a guy that's got glasses and a beard, and they seem to pop up. I didn't catch his name. Is he maybe one of your managers?
Matt.
Beard? Yeah, is he floating around?
No, Matt runs his own outside catering. Matt worked for me. He started working for me as a busboy in Wimbledon Pizza Express back in 95 or 6, and worked with me in pretty much most of his adult life. And then he's now gone off to do his own thing, which is great.
And do you go and see him if you have time?
No, I don't have time.
You haven't got time.
No,
we feel privileged. We've got you for 45 minutes.
But Nick has been. The wonderful thing about Nick was that Nick came on board, and he was a chef, and he, funny enough, went to the same college as I went to.
Oh wow!
At the same time, amazingly, yes, it was the same time. He's a bit older than I am. He's a Liverpool supporter, so we have to forgive him for that.
I like him because I am also a Liverpool fan.
And he understood what I was trying to do, and he understood the ethics, and he understood the simplicity of what I wanted to provide our customers, and he bought into it, and we have become a very strong unit. We've never had one falling out. We've always been like brothers in terms of running the business. Yeah, it's been fantastic, and it's really sad he's moving on. I mean, I can't tell you who. We have someone else coming on board very shortly. Which will be extremely exciting because one opportunity of somebody moving on or somebody exiting the business gives you the chance to review, reboot.
It's quite interesting. I'm not going to mention names either, but there's a guy I know who is very good, and I've not spoke to him for a few weeks, gone quiet, and it'd be really crazy if he's the guy. But the chances of that happening is quite slim. But things do not surprise me, so we'll keep in touch with that one.
Yes.
In terms of TripAdvisor, I'm just going to throw that one in there. So I thought, let's see how well Woburn's doing. It's just opened over Christmas. And it wasn't a 5. It was 4.5. Do you know this? Do you reply to your own TripAdvisor, or is it your PR company?
Yes. One of the jobs I have is to be the public spokesperson on behalf of the business regarding any problems someone has. In fact, I'm like the Harvey Keitel, that film where he's the cleaner. I just go in behind the scenes and clean up the mess.
Yes.
So it's not a job I want to do, by the way.
Yeah.
And I know that one day when Lussman's is a success, I can turn around and say, I don't need to do that anymore.
Of course.
And my job is, and I do this every morning, 7 days a week, between 7:30 and 8, I trawl all the review sites, and I reply to every person who has either left a condemning review or left a narrative that it was good, but actually that wasn't great.
Can I swear, Chris? When someone leaves you a review that is not true, does it piss you off? It does.
Yeah, I would say that I've learned to be a little bit less emotional because I've done thousands now.
Of course.
And I think, OpenTable, which is our reservation centre, trawls all the the reviews in for me, and then
Yes.
obviously I take it from there. And we average as a company between 4.6 and 4.7 out of 5,
Which is amazing.
which is for a high street offering, not a Michelin star business,
Correct.
and we're not fine dining. You know, we sit between Pizza Express, you know, and Phil Fanning at Paris House, which is, you know,
I'm a good friend of Phil's.
and Phil is,
yes.
you know, he is a craftsman, and what they do there is in a different world. We're very much, you know, the kitchen from home.
Yes.
Now, I know there are overlaps, and some people want us to do more and all the rest of it, but it's essentially somewhere where I'd want to eat, where I feel as though I've eaten well,
Yes.
the ethics are, you know, bob on, and I don't have to think too much about, you know, what's going on here. I want a beef bourguignon, and I want to make sure it's been organic. I want a fantastic fish cake, which is something that has been sourced, you know, sustainably. I want to make sure that I've got great coffee that's been made correctly.
You
So
like
it's simple.
coffee, don't you?
Yeah.
Because again, on your socials, it's probably every sort of 7 or 8 images is like a headshot of a coffee.
I love my
I can
coffee.
tell.
I do love, but I have reduced my coffee. I used to drink about
Wired.
when I was on the King's Road in '96. Around then, I was drinking about 17 espressos a day, 18 a day, and I always said I never took any drugs.
You didn't
But
need to.
my God, I drank a lot of coffee. I have reduced that hugely. I now have about 2 or 3 coffees a day now. So I've gone the other way, but. And you get to a certain age where you suddenly realise you can't drink coffee after 3 o'clock.
You can't sleep, yeah.
Because you get up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And I suddenly, thought, my God, we are physically, as we get older, because you never think it's going to happen, we're changing.
Yes. Do you know, being from Bed or living in Bedford, do you know Wood and Hill Coffee in Ampthill?
Yes, I'm going to have a chat with them soon.
Robin?
Yes.
So Robin's a friend of mine, and
Yes.
I'm probably the reason he's got half his clients. So that's live. We're gonna record that, and we're gonna send it to him once it's there. But sound guy, lovely roaster.
Well, he sells coffee to a little gym called Jones.
Yes.
In Biggleswade that I go to.
Okay.
And he spoke to me a couple of times saying we'd like to do coffee. And I move quite slowly in making a decision. But when I make a decision, I want it to be enacted like yesterday.
Amazing.
And I said to him,
Or
you know
not for
what?
him.
Well, we used to have a coffee producer, supplier. Anyway,
Yeah.
unfortunately, for whatever reason, that company had a problem and went bust. Okay. So I said to him, right, this is an opportunity now. So I'm going to see him this month.
Amazing.
With a view, if we can actually craft us our own blend, which is more Italian in style rather than New Age, which basically means it's stronger roast and less bright, like the new coffees you get at Gales. And
he can do that, and you know you can train your staff just down the road. So that's nice. Just a couple more things, really. I mean, I could probably talk to you all day. You're busy. I pretend I'm busy to my wife, but I'm busy too. If you were on an island and there was only 3 things you could eat and cook,
okay,
what would you actually?
Well,
have?
I have garlic. Get me one of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 100%.
You love garlic?
Yes, and obviously our customer says too much garlic in it, and I'm like, for God's sake, grow up. But of course they're right.
Garlic.
We're running a business. We once ran a contract catering firm. We had a cafe in North Kensington, West London, and we got robbed twice. And I had another London. I said, sod it, I've had another London. I'm never going back to London ever again. Clearly, I got over it. But there was a contract caterer called John Brown Publishing opposite that used to do Viz magazine and Waitrose, Wisdom Almanac, and various other titles. And they said, can you come and do our contract catering? Because all my staff are always eating in your cafe.
Yeah.
And the contract caterer was making no money. So I said, fine. Anyway, Waitrose Illustrated, that very, very impressive title, was coming out of that place as well. So they all had food photographers and everything else. And the biggest complaint, and in the end I said, I've had enough. The biggest complaint was, Andrei, why is it that entire floors of every part of the building stink of garlic? And I'm like, it's good for us. And they're like, what is it with your garlic? So we're not that bad anymore. But, that would be one. What else? I think a bottle of red wine would be 2, and bread. Or bread, butter, red wine, and garlic.
So we've got garlic, bread, and some wine.
Yeah, that's it.
That's a win.
Yeah, exactly. Olive oil, butter. I mean, those sort of very simple.
You can't have 5, just 3.
Okay, so garlic, red wine, bread.
Do you eat meat?
Yes.
Do you eat fish?
Yes.
You didn't think about putting meat and fish in your...
Yeah, but this is not a real thing, is it? I mean, obviously, if this was for real,
it's happening.
I'd be thinking, right, okay, I need a protein.
You need a protein, some carbs.
So I'm assuming that this is a make-believe island. So on that basis, I'll stick with my earlier...
Really interesting. There's also a couple of pictures with you and Jamie Oliver. Is that just because Jamie Oliver was at the awards with Uncle Ray, or do you know Jamie?
No, I don't know Jamie. No, I mean, he was at the awards, and we were very lucky to get an award. I mean, it's very unusual to have Jamie and Uncle Ray giving me this
Uncle
award.
Ray, double hit.
And I think Jamie was having an award that day as well, so we both picked up an award, and he gave me my award. I mean, Jamie Oliver still is, probably one of, if not the most impressive in terms of what he's done. I might not have agreed with everything that's happened in the world of Jamie Oliver. But, respect to him. I mean, he's been very successful, continues to be very successful. He's out there, and he's worldwide. I mean, so, what's not
I thought I'd ask, because he's on my vision board of actually meeting and working with him. So I thought, well, maybe Andrei's pals with him. We can get one step closer.
No, the problem is that I'm old school, and I've never had much of a black book, and I can't be bothered, and I've always thought do it the hard way. Because I'd never want to feel as though I owe someone something, because, that I know them and they've done me a deal. So I have very little in terms of people. I mean, there's a few customers of ours which are quite famous.
Yeah. Can you name some?
Can I name? Okay. Well, we've got the chap who used to drive that little yellow Mini, with a brown suit.
Del Boy?
No, that was a yellow.
Was that not Mini either? Who's that? Mr. Bean?
Yeah, that's it. That could be him. Yes. So he's a regular.
Yeah.
Yes. He's a regular. There's a
Rowan.
Huh?
Rowan accent. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There's a few others. And now you put me on the spot. I'm trying to think.
This is great.
I don't think of him because my kids were so enamoured. They said, "Can you ask him?"
The cartoons.
I said, no, you can't ask him. You've got to just pretend he's not there, because otherwise they get very upset when you do know that they're there. It's almost like you've got to pretend you don't know who they are, but make them feel as though you sort of do, but you don't. And it all gets, so in the end it's like, oh, sorry, just treat them like everybody else.
100%. I think that's it. I kind of just want you to just tell the audience really why they should come to your restaurant in Woburn, and sort of what should they expect. I'm going to be going. We're actually going to host a networking event there. You don't even know this yet, but we're going to host it because we want to go somewhere new that has quality. So we'll get in touch with your team and we'll book that in. But just tell everyone about your Woburn business, why they should come, why you're grateful that they're going to come and dine. And
well, I'm grateful that we are where we are as a result of our loyal patrons, and there is a very strong community of regulars, and that's demonstrated that we have a mailing list of about 35,000 with a 50% open rate.
That's on my list. Yeah. I forgot.
Yeah, so they demonstrate the engagement of our locals, and we've had a number of conversations in the past with a huge number of regulars about that part of the menu doesn't work, that dish should change, why are you doing that, why have you changed the chairs? I mean, it's difficult, but it's great that they're so invested.
Yes.
And so much, to the point where some of these regulars have brought in their children, and now we've got some of those children coming in with their kids. So we've been around for a long time in St Albans. We've been there for 20 years. This year is 20 years old. Yeah. We're now seeing generations come through. On the boring side, I think restaurants have to remember that they've got to be the right cost.
Yes.
They've got to have charming staff, because we all rely on that, and they've got to have a consistent offering.
Yes.
So it's the 3 C's in my brain, because back in the 70s and 80s, you didn't really have that in restaurants. It was always a bit of a mess. Independent, tea towel across the shoulder. You're lucky to get a table, let alone anything else. We've grown up in hospitality, and now it's pretty professional. But you've got to have something that pulls people in. And in our case, it was always about making sure that we don't reinvent the wheel. So it's the opposite of what everyone tries to do. It's like saying, well, why can't we just make sure that people eat so well and enjoy the food with such charming staff at a price that is very, very good value? Yes, it's a bit more than Pizza Express. Yes. It is. But when you talk about what they get crammed in terms of the bill, you suddenly realise, wow, that's really good value.
Yes.
And, a locals restaurant is all about having staff that say, lovely to see you again, and we want to look after you. It's a very interesting business, hospitality, because there's not many industries you can think of that customers go walk in and say, well, here we go, there's my wallet, pretty much. You can I want to have a good night tonight. I mean, I suppose, the dark art of prostitution might have been the same back in the day, or it probably still is. But apart from that, restaurants is a wonderful business where you go to retail, people are very guarded. They might look at something, then take a photograph, buy it online. In restaurants, like the theatre, you go out and you want to be looked after.
Exactly.
You go in with the idea is, I want to have a good time. And I suppose with 22 years, we've demonstrated that we've been able to do that. But it's about being a regulars place, a locals place. And one of the things that we've done over the years, with the exception of Mother's Day, is that we've never charged anything extra for our menus on Valentine's Day or New Year's Eve, on these very special days where every restaurant is oversubscribed, 10 times over. It's a wonderful opportunity to make lots of money. We've always had the idea that actually you're a regular, you live locally, why should we take advantage?
Yeah,
we shouldn't. We should just make sure we're here. And the amazing thing is that I think that attitude breathes through the restaurant, and those customers appreciate what you're doing and say, well, we'll be here during hard times. And in fact, during COVID,
that was on my list. There's lots to talk through, but we won't talk about it. But we had loads of support there. Yeah. And I think that one of the reasons was they always realised that we weren't here just for Christmas. We're here for life. And lobster and steak boxes. Yes. And the wine that was in there and the little pre-made.
Do you know we did 50,000 meals across COVID? That's not crazy. Boxes, but meals. So we were hard at it. Yes. And if we hadn't have done that, we wouldn't have survived.
Did you go quick enough?
We were the quickest.
You were the quickest.
We went 1 week before Boris locked us down. Yeah. Because I knew, I had no idea about the government paying for people's salaries. What was it called? What was that called? That thing.
Furlough.
We didn't know about furlough. Yeah. And of course, we just opened Oxford, and that had been open for 10 days, a £500,000 investment, and then we had to close it. And all that money had gone, and we had nothing in the bank. And it was very simple that it wasn't about anything apart from we need to survive.
Yes.
And our regulars turned around and said, we love this. And then overnight, it became, it took us 30 hours to turn the restaurant into an online business. And then we were away.
Would you ever turn that back on as a special thing? Once a year, aim for a day, get this at home. Because I'd love it.
Yeah, the boxes became, very, very sought after. And I remember I had a conversation on one of these, these online conversations with the owners of Hawksmoor and Stein's son.
Yeah.
And I was there with them thinking, I am definitely the pretender here because they're selling lots. Yeah. And I did turn around and say, look, for God's sake, can you just bugger off and leave Hertfordshire to us? Because you've got the rest of the country. And by the way, we're doing what they're doing and it's cheaper. And I think it's better.
Yeah, of course.
And I don't know if they like that. But the fact was that, we were getting a lot of traction and people were loving it. And we were meeting regulars that I'd never met because I was driving and all the rest of it. We had, fleets of people. We even had black cabs coming down to move food and fruit and veg boxes and bread and dairy and everything else because, of course, the supermarkets,
Of course.
And it was a wonderful time in one way.
In that way.
We were able to meet with regulars that we didn't know existed. And it's about making sure that we're not just here for today.
Yes.
We're here for 20 years as your go-to restaurant. So we don't try and be the best restaurant, but we do try and be people's favourite local restaurant.
So just the last piece that I'm going to ask you. So you've mentioned another restaurant. What is the next 10 years in terms of growth of your brand look like if it goes to plan? Is there a lot more restaurants?
I think we've got to be mindful of growth because that brings on its own pitfalls of concern and problems.
Yeah.
If regulars turn around and said, you've lost your touch, I'd be heartbroken because with my name above the door, which is a double-edged sword, if I did it again, would I call it Lussman's? I don't know. Because it's, you go to bed at night and it's, with your name above the door, it's a tough thing to have to live with. But I think we need to grow because it's a very tough market. And my view is attack is the best form of defence.
Yes.
And we need to get going with it. But we can never lose sight of our regulars who write to me. And if we are off point, then invariably, they're not wrong. We're losing touch. Absolutely. Yeah. And the last thing I want to do is that. So, yes, we are probably the slowest growing company in the UK in terms of restaurants.
Fine.
But we are growing. We take our regulars very seriously, our locals. And if you go too fast, and there's been lots of examples of this in the restaurant business, then you lose that lovely, nuanced relationship with regulars, which are here today, but very quickly will go, and they won't even tell you.
Yeah.
So you've got to be sensitive. And that's why I think in the end, I am a customer of Lussmann's in terms of if I feel it feels right, then I'm not far off. And we've got to make sure we keep those consistent standards, which is all the work that goes on behind the scenes, being hit. Because if we don't, then there's nothing worse than going to a restaurant. They said, it used to be great, and they've lost
terrible.
it.
So the answer, because you didn't answer the question, you're going to have 8, because that's in the plans.
We're going to keep growing.
And is it just see how it goes? Is there a number in your mind, or you just?
Well, I don't know about numbers, and I don't know about exit plans because if I had an exit plan planned, I probably would never call it Lussmann's.
No, of course not.
But we have to keep growing because by doing that, we afford our staff great opportunity to grow within our business. And we give our customers, which I receive letters from Marlow, Winchester and beyond saying, why aren't you here? And I'm like, well, we're not Wix. We can't just roll up and put up a new unit.
Oh, yeah.
We are going to get to these places slowly. And at the same time, we can't lose sight of the fact that we need to remain not on trend, not in vogue. It's a bit like a linen jacket. It always looks good, but it's not the first garment you'd wear when you're going to, or you're going to a film premiere. But you know what? We're classic. We're there for a long time. We're not meant to be here today and gone tomorrow. So slowly does it.
Yep.
And more of the same, I think.
Well, I've really enjoyed meeting you.
Thank you.
I'm going to be eating there soon. Anything we can do in Milton Keynes, Woburn, Olney, all the surrounding areas will help you. Because we just want another restaurant that's independent to do well, and it's been really good meeting you.
And thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk. And I always felt that Woburn was part of Milton Keynes.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And you feel the same?
I think Woburn would say different.
No, well, Woburn's Woburn, but
Milton Keynes wants to bring Woburn over here.
Yes.
But yeah, totally. And otherwise, your Stony Stratfords, your Olneys, your Woburn's, Woburn Sands would not count. But they're MK postcodes, so it counts.
Yeah.
And we're all part of it.
Yeah. And
Amazing.
I always think better together.
I think so.
Yeah. And of course, you've got Phil Fanning and Paris House, which is, from that perspective, the best restaurant there is in the county, the district by some margin.
I agree, and he's a legend in his own right. So I love Phil, and thank you for coming in.
No problem. Thank you.
And enjoy Woburn, and we hope you do a really, really, really good job.
Thank you very much. Cheers for having me.
Cheers, Andrei.
Bye-bye.